Hey guys, Shadowmains here. So this is the very first podcast video that I did. For this video, we got Camo, DaiReaver, Hurley, and ScubaCod. So wanted to give a real quick. This is going to be the first part of a two-part video. Then there will be a third part that'll come out. That'll basically be parts one and parts two put together in a single video. That'll release sometime later this week. So with that being said, sit back and enjoy. You don't even need to have the video up. You can just put this on in the background. So sit back and enjoy, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks, guys. Again, thank you for coming out and doing this. This is fantastic. I've been looking forward to this, since basically everyone agreed to do it. So I think what we're going to do now is, for the people watching this, we're going to go ahead and get started with some introductions. I'm not sure how this is set up on your side with, what order it is. In me, it starts with Camo, goes Dai, goes Hurley, then goes Scuba. So I think we'll go left to right like that. So go ahead, introduce, tell us who you are, and give us your experience in the Monster Hunter series, dealing with like the first game that you started, what platforms you play on, your weapon of choice, et cetera, things like that.
You want me to go first then, yeah?
Yeah, go ahead and start us off.
Well, I'm Camo. I think the first time I played Monster Hunter was on it was Monster Hunter 4 Generations Ultimate. I never really truly got as involved as I have with Monster Hunter World. I wasn't that invested to it compared to how I am with World. And my weapon of choices are hammer and dual swords mostly. About it, really.
Okay, I'm DaiReaver, and I have only just started the series in Monster Hunter World. I say only just, but I was there day one. I did do the alpha, and I thought I was going to go with Glaive, but then our good boy Arex taught me the ways of the Charge Blade, and I've been a Charge Blade main since launch. I will play other weapons, especially when other people are taunting me to play other weapons, much to their delight. But yes, Charge Blade is where it's at for me, and I can't say I've ever played a better game. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm Hurley. Monster Hunter World I've known about. I mean, I used to work when it came out. I actually worked in a game store, and I was actually with everyone at the store where everyone was going mad about it and going, you need to get into this game. And I've heard about the series, but never actually been, I wouldn't say interested, but just never thought it'd be something that would compel to me. But being a variety streamer myself, I've been looking for a game, and I was struggling to find a game that had enough content in it and enough bite, and yeah, just something that was new and different. And I'd watched Dai, and I've been introduced to DaiReaver as a streamer as well for watching him for a good year at least or more, of watching him do Monster Hunter World, and he recommended it to me. And I have to say, since 7 months ago now, from Dai introducing me to it, getting me into the game, getting me prepared, and told me about Iceborne coming out. Since those 2 months, we grinded all the way through to being ready for Iceborne, and I've put nearly 800 hours into the game, and it's my most played game of PlayStation 2019. So as much as I'm a noob to it, I have to say I absolutely love the series, and I cannot wait for what's to come in the future with Monster Hunter World. But yeah, I love the series and look forward to what comes next, but I'm a complete novice, to be honest, when it comes to previous series.
Alrighty. Let's see. First attempt at Monster Hunter was Monster Hunter on the Wii. Played that for a little bit, trying to get a grasp on the game. I felt it was a little hard to get into. And then my birthday a few years ago, a friend of mine gave me Monster Hunter for 3DS, and I got a little bit further with that one. So at least the whole concept of the game really caught my interest, but it didn't hold it very well. And then Monster Hunter World came out, and I got that at launch. I played Xbox version of Monster Hunter World for years, and not really years, but I got in there, spent several months grinding away, and then kind of fell into the trap of completionist. I wanted to get a combination of everything. Right now, I think the last time I was in there, Insect Glaive is my preferred weapon, because I was trying to be range. I hadn't really got into the whole in-your-face fighting. But Yeah, that's pretty much it with my thing. I love the story. I love the characters, and I love with from what I've seen of Iceborne, the adding in all those extra elements to it and kind of adding more fully voiced characters, because that's something that always kind of got me was you hear the voice, or most of it was dialogue with an occasional grunt or a hi or a hello.
Yeah, those are definitely the good old days. There's this ahoy, one liners. They definitely have come a long way since the older games. So that is something that yeah. All right, so next question coming up. What drew you guys into the Monster Hunter series? Like, what was I know a lot of you have just mentioned that you've played some of the older games, but it didn't particularly pull you in at that point. And then it was as the later games came out that that got you drawn into the series. So what was it that drew you into the Monster Hunter series?
I think what drew me in initially, well, particularly like World itself, because that was the first main game I was invested in, was the actual environment, atmosphere, everything that it shown off in the trailers when it was initially announced and stuff. Like the landscapes of the ancient forest and how beautiful it looked on consoles at the time. I think going from seeing what it looked like it on a 3DS to such a massive overhaul of the overall graphics, and it was just mind-boggling, really. So really, it was just the beauty of the game that kind of drew me in initially.
So for me, it was, I don't know, I hate to say it, I really hate to say it, but the graphics caught my attention initially, and that is sacrilege for me because I always say functionality first. Being a developer, then that's important to me. But I've always been an MMO player, and I've loved leading raids into dungeons, into raids themselves, and dealing with the big bosses. So when I saw a game coming out that had straight into the big boss fight, and you had more control over yourself rather than just tapping a rotation in MMOs like 1-3-3-4, 1-3-3-4. Being able to have full control of your character while taking on that boss straight away was everything I wanted out of games. So that caught my attention straight away. I never really saw previous trailers for the previous games. So the fact that they actually brought this to the West and made it more westernized in terms of the graphics, in terms of making it more of a AAA game, it caught my notice, and I've never turned back since. It's a diamond.
Yeah, as I said, known about the series even before Monster Hunter World came out. The game was released. Everyone told me like I was crazy not to get into it. I've watched Dai and a few other streamers that have obviously been into it since launch. And yeah, as a streamer, wanting to get into a new game, and it was Dai who sat me down on Party Chat and was like, "Have you actually played it?" And I was like, "No, actually." After discussing it, I was like, I don't think it's for me. Well, do you want to try it? And if it wasn't for share playing it, which is also a great feature of obviously console with like PlayStation being able to share play, the PlayStation was a great thing. And I think I'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I might have spent 3 hours on share play, and you're only allowed to do an hour at a time. So Dai kindly kept restarting the share play session and made an extra save for me to experience it. But since I got my first weapon, which was Switch Axe, haven't turned back since. Absolutely love it. But that's how I got into Monster Hunter World.
For me, just the whole concept, as you guys all said, the artwork is amazing on this. The story, being that whole adventurer type thing, and let's be honest, who doesn't enjoy seeing different interpretations of dragons and dinosaurs to kind of tangle with? And so that's what got me, that whole adventuring RPG stuff, and the concept of the story really kind of resonated. And then with Worlds, the game mechanics and seemed very easy and intuitive to get into, because I felt the older ones, it was really kind of hard. It was a little bit harder to get that mechanic down. But with World, it's like once you got that rhythm going with the weapon, then it was just hilarity to see how you, even if you just don't quite stick the landing on the first hit, something else will happen and you could just jump right back into it. So
That sounds good. Really quick though, guys, which artwork do you like better? I know you all mentioned like how gorgeous the games look and everything. Which artwork did you guys like? Do you like the way it looked old school? It was bright and colorful, or do you kind of like the way it looks now, where it's more realistic in a sense, I guess.
I want to say it's the evolution of it. Probably the best thing I could say is that evolution of the artwork. Because when I first saw it, I was kind of reminded of the Final Fantasy X and X2, and that's kind of art palette. And then as it got into World, being a lot more realistic looking, but still having a very unique style that feels very kind of organic, as opposed to some games where it's like you question whether or not you actually live in that particular environment.
I got you. Anybody else? I know.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I'd agree with what was just said about, and also mentioning what Dai said with Capcom. Obviously, with the Japanese market, I know Monster Hunter World has obviously been absolutely fan crazy and was a very, very big market. Whereas Dai said, with this one coming over to the main consoles, they have really focused on making it like mainstream and not just Monster Hunter veterans, but people like myself that might not know the series and think, oh, that's too of a grindy game or it's too much to get into. You can get into it, you can learn it. It's not, they've like simplified things, made things a lot easier and accessible to other people. And the artwork goes with that as well. Someone mentioning Final Fantasy, I can definitely see like the level of like AAA game, like with the artwork, the evolution of it. It's more realistic, but it has that refinedness of that realism as well. It's still got that it's still got its own unique feel, same as Final Fantasy. If you look at any Final Fantasy character, you can tell what type of artist has worked on it. Monster Hunter World has that, but it's also gone more realistic with the color tones, which I would actually prefer. I don't like the really bright, overly, what I'd call, I wouldn't call it childish, but it's more kid centric in my opinion. It reminds me again of like Fortnite today. I hate to mention the game, but that's what it reminds me of. Really bright colors is Fortnite, so it would put me off if the monsters were really bright colors.
Okay.
So from my take on it, I'd love the art style as it is now. I think if the art style had still been the same, it might have still got my attention. But the whole loading, the fact that this is seamless and the old ones weren't, I think that has definitely tipped the balance for me. But I like the more realistic art styles, definitely. I do still enjoy, styles like Borderlands, cel shaded and other games like that. But more true artwork definitely rings out to me. And I know that it's a bane of a lot of Monster Hunters. I know a lot of you are thinking right now, but the weapons. But I do like the realistic style now. I do wish they still had the designs of the past after having seen a lot of them, but I would like to see realistic interpretations of them rather than them being as... I don't mind them being so bright, just so long as it's bright and it fits with the realistic scenario.
So kind of like the way Coral Puke might look.
Yes, yeah. So that's fine. Coral Puke is nice and bright. It'd be nice to see weapons like that, but it's not going to look like a cartoon in a realistic world. So I am worried that they're starting to bring in all these other things. Like the meat hammer and the pickaxe is dull, but still, this whole theme. I just hope they don't go back to the cartoony way too much, or if they do, I just hope they bring in. They actually adapt it so that I don't know. It's filtered to look realistic.
Okay. Okay.
But that's my personal bias anyway.
All right.
I really liked how the old Monster Hunter games were like very, they were very pleasing to the eye, like aesthetically. So like the bright colors, it always drew you in, like constantly when you were playing it. All the surroundings were all just beautiful to look at. But I think it's a whole, like, it's hard to contrast the two because it's never really truly on consoles in the West. So it's hard to kind of compare them both together. Comparing the older games to the console games, so like, because they're two different complete worlds, really. If you think about it, like if you think about it on an art level, because one's very obviously cartoony, very bright and vibrant, whereas if you go into like world, you've got like the dark, nitty gritty, like Rotten Vale, and it truly shows how detailed and just just beautiful, but in a nitty gritty way, if you know what I mean. So I think for me personally, I prefer the new style, the way the world looks, obviously being better quality overall because they've been able to do that with the graphics processing and all that. But I still like the aesthetically bright, pleasing colors of the old one. So I think a mix of both, either way, is pleasing for me, no matter which way I look at it.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair enough, and I think I believe that's kind of what they may have been going for with like the first and second game as well, because I don't think it really started to get that colorful until the DS game started coming out. But if anybody wants to correct me in the comments, please do, please do. But we're gonna move on to the next question now, and that is, what is your favorite thing about Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter World Iceborne? And if you want to compare it to an older game in the series, go right ahead and do that as well.
Do you mean between the base and Iceborne?
Just in general between the two. So if like world as a whole, including Iceborne.
That's a unexpected and hard question. Okay, I'll dive in and give the guys time to think about it if they want. In terms of the difference between them, I would say mechanics. The mechanics that they've actually included in the expansion have completely changed the previous game as well. So it's nice that we had, as long as we did, to play the base version, and then they completely mix things up. You know, you have your behemoth, you have your ancient lesson, where you've got to scramble to put that weapon away quickly to get those flashes out. Otherwise, you are in hot sauce. So yeah, it's now that we can actually use the flash pods while still having the weapon out, means we don't have to worry too much about quick sheath. So it's changed the dynamic of the importance of the skills that you use as well. Being able to clutch claw, damn, that's nice. That's so nice. You know, it's special move mechanics, which is what I used to program back in the day as well for other games. So it's nice to see that coming in as well, and that it introduces damage, it introduces monster control. It's given us way more control than we had before. So they've literally changed the game entirely just with the introduction of some, you could say, simple mechanics, but I know under the hood what it took to make it happen as well. So that's one of the beauties of it, but also being able to bring in an entire new biome as well, which gives you a new flavor and a new feel for the game, a new atmosphere. And they changed the urgency a bit as well, with the advent of the Guiding Lands, the new creatures that they involve, and just a simple amount. One thing I say quite a lot, the simple amount of content that they have actually provided in the DLC for the price that they did, I think you'll be very hard pressed to find any other game that can actually offer that much content and that much value for that price. It's amazing. So I think they've excelled themselves in the game industry platform. They've done an amazing job. It's not just little changes. They've overhauled the whole thing, and it's fantastic.
I think the difference, well, referencing to old games, because I think Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate was the first time they added lateral movements, didn't they? So like, going up on heights and going above and beyond instead of staying on ground level, from what I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong though. But I think so keeping that, like changing that in past games and all that kind of stuff is great for moving forward. And the difference like between Monster Hunter World and Iceborne, I think the addition to the clutch claw and being able to like combine genuine like general moves from, like, let's just say the hammer and doing the upward swing, and then being able to transition straight into the clutch claw is like an incredible feat. And when you learn how to like combo correctly and everything without messing up as such, is like a huge thing for hunters like that play the game. And it's just, it feels so smooth as well. Like they've changed like quite a few of the the combos you can do and like the actual movements, and adding that in from Monster Hunter World to Iceborne has got to like have taken them for like quite a long time to do, because they've got to change how movements work and how certain moves work to actually get the combination to clutch claw to work. And just genuinely, it's just pleasing to be able to pull off such incredible things, especially when you're using a hammer. You can go up in that clutch claw and knock them down, whereas before you couldn't. If the monster was too high, you're trying to reach up to the monster's face. Let's just say if you were against the Devil Joe or something, and trying to reach up to knock it over with a stun. Well, in Iceborne, they've made it more accessible for you to actually obtain that stun with the clutch claw. So to me, it's like a massive improvement. So
Anybody else want to add to that or hop in on that?
I haven't played Iceborne, so all I've done is seen from what some of the media releases for it, commercials, and then some of the gameplay from you guys. For me, it's more of the original Monster Hunter World, and just that whole thing I like the most is just how you can go into the same area of the map so many times and you get an almost different result each time. Granted, yes, some of the trails and tracks are the same, but just the fact that you could go about it in so many different ways really kind of stands out to me on that. And that whole it blends that open world aspect, whereas a lot of other ones are adventure RPGs that seem to have rails that you have to travel on. It kind of reminds me of again Final Fantasy 15, how open that was to sit there and explore and go through the various combos with the different weapons.
Yeah, there's basically the whole foundation of Monster Hunter World and Iceborne, the DLC, everything they've done with this release compared to the other games. They really have, as Amit Dyer said, like with the AAA attitude, and like others have said tonight, with they've really stepped it up. The foundations they've laid for this game in every area of what a gamer wants from a video game. Value for money, for content. You cannot, I agree with everyone today in here, but would say you can't get a game that gives you that amount of content. Like, if anything, at times, especially the Iceborne DLC, I actually think they might be losing money, maybe, or not making a lot, because for the amount of updates we're getting. I think we're on update 3 with the variants that are coming out shortly, so that's like insane. But everything they've done, from letting new players join and making it simpler for new people to get into it, leveling being a little bit more simpler than compared to the old games, and that's only basing it on from what I've heard from more veteran hunters. They've always said to me that some of the systems were a little bit more complex and maybe not for everyone that is into Monster Hunter World. So what they've done is they've just done everything all round. The graphics are amazing, the gameplay. You can 12 different weapon choices. As we know, you can go hunt a monster one way, you can go back in and hunt it a completely different way. And also, the fact you've got multiplayer, your pals, open lobbies, siege, big sieges that you can do as well. It just ticks all the boxes. Like, if you want an all-round game that has everything, that you can go play with your friends, go play solo, do the story, grind till you've got everything, and it takes ages to do. It's got everything to please any gamer. You can pick it up, you can play it chill and do a little bit a day. You can grind it for hours till end. It pleases everyone. It's an all-round. If I was going to review it based on Monster Hunter World today and the Iceborne DLC together, whether it's PlayStation, Xbox, or PC, no matter what format, I'd give it a solid 9 out of 10. Possibly, because I'm biased, a 10 out of 10. But I'd give it a solid 9 out of 10 and say that is a massive shout to what game has really set foundations going forward very well for next generation, because I can't wait to see what they.
I would 100% agree with the giving it a 9, giving it a 10 out of 10. This game has basically kept me hooked since it came out like 2 years ago, so I can 100% agree with that. Another thing that I can also agree with is, you know, the improvements that they've made, especially with some of the, I don't know how often you guys talk with some veteran hunters, but having played, 4 Ultimate, you know, just that 4-year difference. Well, I guess it was a 3-year difference from when 4 Ultimate released back in 2015 to when they released Monster Hunter World. Just that change in the main title games was just massively huge, and I agree that they did a fantastic job. And like Hurley said, I'm also excited to see what the future holds. Speaking of what the future holds, though, thank you for that little segue there, Hurley. What is something that you guys would like to see in a future Monster Hunter title? Be it a new mechanic, be it a improvement to a current mechanic, a brand new monster, brand new weapons. What is something that you guys would like to see?
Do you want me to jump in on that one? Okay,
Yeah,
so
go right ahead.
In terms of what we would like to see in the future from Capcom, I mean, this kind of actually just brings in the point I was about to say in chat just there as well. So with what they've done, they've now branched themselves out. They've covered new technology. They've now pushed into the PC market. They've got it on the current consoles, and they are everywhere now. So, of course, the natural thing, which we would like to see, and if Capcom and especially Soxy Bear, if you are listening in, I'm sorry because we've had this conversation before, but crossplay. We would love to see crossplay in the future, because they've invested a lot of time now, a lot of hours into development on all these platforms, which means they now have a familiarity with it, which is what they didn't particularly have before. So as a company, they have opened their horizons, and they have allowed themselves to enter a new kind of era for their franchise, for their series. So going forward, it would be nice to see some kind of collaboration before them, especially the way the games industry is currently going. That's on a general company-wide perspective. But if I take a more insular perspective from inside the game itself, then of course what I would love to see is it opening up a bit more in terms of group size and things. I want to see it push towards an MMO without becoming the full MMO that we're all used to. You know, we don't want it to turn into like a Lord of the Rings, World of Warcraft, those kind of things, but we want to see it edge towards that direction. It still needs to keep its own identity, because the issue is that if they push too far towards the MMOs, then they are dealing with resources a lot more, and that means they need to scale back the game from what it currently is, because the more network entities that you have in the game, there's more data that needs to be pushed, which means other areas scale back. But I would like to see bigger hunts. If we can have a 16-man lobby, give us a 16-man hunt, give us a massive creature that we can all focus on different parts, like we do with Safi, but on a bigger scale. You know, think like Zora Magdaros. Give us those kind of encounters where we have a proper raid feeling. We literally go in there with the entire lobby, not as 4 groups of 4. Give us one fight. That's what I want to see. I want to see it expand to that point where you can include everybody in the lobby, not just a few people. So people aren't always fighting to get a game with you. You can in one go game with everybody. But yeah, we still want to keep the scalability in terms of the difficulty scaling as we go into the different size encounters. And we still want to keep the whole kind of dungeon concept in terms of our little groups of 4 going on hunts. So scalability is what we want to see, or at least I want to see, as well as, integration between the different platforms. I could go on and on, but I'm going to hold it there, let somebody else speak.
All right, who wants to go next? Future Monster Hunter titles, which you'd like to see. Oh, we got no volunteers. Oof. Oh,
go on then. Crossplay. What did I say? Crossplay, bigger parties, bigger sieges, and in general, what I said, definitely scalability. And just keep doing what you're doing. Like, don't change. And that's another thing, like Dai said, like, what they're doing is great. And if they can scale what they're doing, don't have your head swayed, I guess, Capcom, and don't follow what other companies are doing by, like, I know they do a lot, like the amount of content we get. Don't start going, right, we're going to give you some of the content, but then we're going to charge you for this DLC. I mean, if it's that amount of content, we probably would still pay for it, but I guarantee your community will stay more loyal and we will be there throughout the whole of it, hooked. And I just hope this dynamic does keep on and they manage to keep on doing it and affording to do what they do. But yeah, maybe more weapons, as in, like, even more weapon trees. Obviously, as Dai said, with scalability, if it gets more scaled up, then I'd like to see countless more weapon trees if possible. I'm not going to lie. Like, there is a lot, and obviously there's 12 weapons, but I still think they could open up that more, bring extra ones back. And I want to see, when it says world, like it's called Monster Hunter World, I want there to be like hundreds of monsters. Even with Iceborne, I still feel that there's still not enough monsters. I'm like, I want all of the monsters. So when you've got all your previous games, yeah, well, you've played the previous games. I don't know half of the lore of the monsters we don't have, but I want all of the Elder Dragons. I want all of the, top big 4, whatever they're called. I want all of them in one game. Why not? And especially with the power of next gen, I think now's the time to do it.
So you kind of want a game that's similar to how Generations Ultimate approaches it with, they just kind of throw a ton of monsters at you and just let you go wild, right?
Oh yeah, we're still with everything else we've got with World though. That I know it's a bit. I know, like, I probably are. Dai being a developer, he's pretty saying, God blimey, that's a nasty task you're giving them with that kind of work. But I mean, even if it took 5 years, I'm not gonna lie, I'd wait. Like they said to me, you're gonna get this, but it's gonna be Monster Hunter World quality. I'd be like, cool, take your time. Like, no rush. I want to play it, but do it right, and I'll look forward to it. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's because I'm greedy. I'll be honest, I'm greedy, pal. Give me all of the monsters.
There's no worries on being greedy there. I definitely know a few people who agree with you that they should have a lot more monsters in this game.
100% agree. I mean, the point that I forgot to make was that I've been saying this, banging on about this from the start. Everybody keeps coming up from the previous games saying, "Oh, you should have fought this monster. You should have seen this." Give me them. I want them. we need the next iteration, or if it's not the next iteration, then the iteration after. We need a Monster Hunter Galaxy or whatever. I was hoping, because they called it World, it was going to be this, but they said they're going to stop going so far. I imagine that's because they want to change the engine a bit going into the new the new consoles and everything, but we need it at some point. So when they are happy and familiar with how they've got all the platforms integrated, and especially if they can actually get them working together, giving us crossplay, that's the time that they then need to change their focus and be like, right, okay, we've made all these monsters. We've created this dynamic, incredible world full of lore. Now's the time. Now we make the game. We bring all the monsters in, new and old, get them all in one game, and then that's their baby. That's the persistent world that we can then carry on focusing on.
That would actually be amazing.
Press the button.
Press
and
the
let us
button.
play. That's what this guy means. He's like, they're ready to let us play now. Like, yay! Give us the game.
Yeah, I would definitely go with that. If the cross play and then adding in. I was just thinking about this because the question I asked is, and I'll put one out for you guys. Have you seen any of the monsters that do not have a reptilian theme to them?
No, well, I've seen like insect ones. Like there's like is it Sil or something? That
You
has,
got
like,
the
a
you got the
castle above it?
Celtus. You got the Celtus, and then you
crabs?
got the crabs or the Hermitars.
Give
Yeah.
me them.
Well, but that would be something I'd like to see. I'd like to see something that doesn't have some more monsters, some more things you can hunt that don't have an overly reptilian theme to it. Something a little bit more, maybe a little bit more mammalian to kind of change things up a little bit. Because I think even the ones that at first glance are mammalian, they have a distinct reptilian feature to them.
Okay. Yeah, there were definitely a lot more mammalian insect monsters that were in past titles. So I think seeing a lot of those guys being brought up in the future is something I could definitely agree with too. I was kind of hoping Iceborne would bring some insect monsters, but
Wait till you meet Monkey Boy and Iceborne, bro. You won't be saying that then when you're like, give us small monsters but don't fight like reptilians. Okay. Just wait till you game, bro.
It's supposed to be a world, and a world is not one type of thing. So if you get expanded for more areas to explore, or even upresing and bringing in the previous places that were in the other games, only let the passage of time from the games kind of progress through and see what changes have happened in the world.
It's because the new world hasn't had the comet that wipes out all the dinosaurs yet. That's their excuse. That's their excuse.
That can't happen. No, because then we won't get the old ones in the future, versions. There can't be a comet. No, that's illegal.
That's what we're gonna do. We won't make any more new monsters because guess what? There was a comet and they're all dead. Like, damn it, guys! No.
Now they're all tadpoles.
Now they're all tadpoles. Yeah. Camo, did you have anything you want to add?
I never got to play it myself, but I actually really want them, from reading about it, I really want them to bring back underwater fights again.
Yes.
From what I've
That was a
videos,
thing.
yeah, it was a thing. They from videos I've seen, never actually played it myself, so I don't know what the fights themselves are like. But after seeing it in the game itself and being able to fight monsters underwater is seems like just a massive feat within itself. I think the main points I'd like to see go into the next generation of Monster Hunter as a franchise would be I want to see the crossplay like everyone else has mentioned, but then I want the world itself to feel more seamless. So obviously at the moment you fly to the ancient forest or the hoarfrost, or you fly to all these specific areas, but I'd actually like to see them all interlinked. So so it was basically an MMO world, like an open world as such, quotations obviously, because it is a bit tricky. But
so you want something that would be more like the Guiding Lands, but much bigger.
Yeah, but in a bigger platform, so that it's like the actual sizes of each area is perfect. They're fine, but I think a more easier transitional feature of traveling from one to the other and being able to accept quests. So it's like going on the expedition.
Right.
I could literally go to start the expedition in ancient forest and end up on the other side of the world in the hoarfrost on the mountainscapes, and so it just seems a bit more open rather than having to fly to one destination, complete the quest, go back. I could literally just go on this expedition, start in the ancient forest, speak to the handler or whoever is giving out the missions at that time, and then instead of having to fly back to X area, I could literally just pick up another quest straight away and then move on through the map, so that I didn't have to keep flying back to the hub or whatever to transition into the next story mission or the next optional mission, or and just expand a bit more on the monsters in general. So yeah, that's my biggest takeaway from what I'd like to see in the next Monster Hunter iteration.
Okay, all right. I will say that it's interesting you did bring up water combat. I know a lot of veteran people who definitely don't like that. I think the biggest issue that water combat had when it was introduced in 3 was the fact that it was just very clunky on the DS, but it's one of the things that I've also felt could probably work on a modern day console pretty well.
I think the SSD as well would help with what you just said as well, Camo, about like seamless, like what you're asking for is like a true open world. Whereas instead of going from one loading screen to then flying to another destination, then starting in another loaded area, it's more seamless. And I think with the SSD being more used with gaming and loading times, we are going to start seeing developers becoming a lot more creative, and anything that we do have sitting in a screen loading like that, they are going to obviously be more creative or make that transition seem completely effortless, so the gamer doesn't feel like they're sitting there waiting. It's going to feel more interactive and more in the game 24/7. So I think hopefully we'll be getting that.
I don't really agree on the point that it's SSD based. Of course, SSD makes it better on the loads. It's more down to like map design. So when you have large games like Skyrim, for example, they work on a grid-based system. They work on I say oct trees. Not many people are going to know what I'm talking about. But basically, you have everything loaded in the grid that you're currently in, and then you load in the minimal assets in terms of like geometry, terrain for the tiles that are next to you. Some dynamic entities as well. But as you traverse around, it's constantly streaming in and out assets. So that's how these big tile games work. And if you don't have it in that sense, then you start having to look towards games like one game that shows it quite well is like Destiny. You have your large rooms and what I call pipes. So you have your tunnels which go from one large area to another. And as you're traveling through those pipes, that's when levels are loaded in and loaded out accordingly to actually make it look seamless. So to achieve that with Monster Hunter World in the way they've designed it, the proximity of, if you're thinking about like the Astera and the Ancient Forest and everything like that, they are pretty damn close to each other. So loading in assets are going to be pretty tough. So they would need to make the map design more sparse, more spread out, and then they would be able to have that kind of system. They could actually go either to the pipes in the rooms, or they could go to the tile-based system. Tile-based system does sometimes have some problem with verticality as well. So it's not to say that you can't create a hybrid of these systems, but it is a massive technical challenge. And while we're talking development as well, if we talk about the underwater, you're probably right in what you're saying in terms of the technical limitations on, I think it was the DS that you mentioned, but with more power behind it in terms of the main consoles and the PC, it is certainly achievable. But we also have to consider that you are doubling the size of the games in terms of assets. You know, think about all the different moves and all the different weapons you have. They would all need different animations entirely in one respect, if it's not done efficiently, I would say. But you can also blend animations together. So you could potentially still have the same animation for the top half of your character, but the legs are animated differently, so they're blended together differently. So which means you can cut down on the amount of animations. But you're also going to need to put in, I suppose, other effects on it to make sure that you have the same animations playing that you would on land, but you're actually slowing them down because they're in water as well. So it is achievable, but it's massively, massively tripling the workload. So yes, I would like to see it as well, but we all need to acknowledge that it's going to take a hell of a lot of effort to get those things going as well. Oh,
Yeah.
actually,
Oh, go
can I
ahead.
squeeze in one little idea because before I forget it? So when you were talking about going from starting in one area and going to the other as well, of course we have that in the Guiding Lands. They've tried to introduce that, but on a small scale. Obviously, it's quite small. It would be nice to see that on a large scale, as you're saying. But that gave me an idea. Can you imagine fighting in one area? Say you start fighting in the Ancient Forest or something, or let's say Wildspire because there's more open sky, and then another creature comes in that's not Basil, but bloody big, flying, comes in, starts fighting you. It literally scoops you up, and then it flies across to the side of the world. So then you're in Hoarfrost Reach, and that's when you've done enough damage to the inside of the monster, so it spits you out, and now you're in Hoarfrost Reach. There you go, Capcom. You can have that idea for free.
I like it.
Yeah, I definitely think fighting monsters between different maps would be a ton of fun, but there's definitely some logistical issues that would definitely need to be worked out for something like that. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment if you want to see more things like this in the future. Also, I stream over at twitch.tv/ShadowMain, so if you want to catch me outside of the videos, I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that would be a fantastic time to, just come hang out and play some Monster Hunter. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.